A broken start in America. Have you ever sat in a quiet room, surrounded by a new country, a new language, and a version of yourself you barely recognize, and thought, maybe I'm not made for this? This video is for that exact moment. Over the next 20 minutes, I'll tell you a slow, real story about coming to America, failing at English, feeling lost in love and life, and unexpectedly being rescued by a rescued dog. Not with big words. Not with pressure. Just real English, real feelings, and one small story that quietly changes everything. I still remember my first weeks in the United States. They didn't feel cinematic. No inspirational music. No confidence miles. Just silence. Too much silence. The kind that makes your thoughts louder than they should be. You imagine America as loud, fast, confident. But when you first arrive, especially alone, America can feel empty. Wide streets. Big skies. Cold air. And a language that surrounds you but refuses to enter your mouth. I had studied English for years before coming. Grammar books. Vocabulary lists. Test scores that looked respectable on paper. But the moment a cashier asked, "How's your day going?" my brain froze like an old computer. Not because I didn't know English, but because English suddenly was real. Your brain reacts differently when a language is no longer a subject, but a survival tool. Linguists call this cognitive overload. Your brain is translating, judging, protecting your ego, and trying not to embarrass you, all at the same time. No wonder you feel tired after one short conversation. I remember walking home that day, thinking, maybe I'm just bad at languages. That thought is dangerous. Because once you believe it, your brain stops trying. Climate made it worse. I came from a place with warm air, familiar smells, loud mornings. In America, the weather changed like moods. One day sunny. Next day freezing rain. My body didn't know how to respond, and neither did my emotions. Psychologists say climate affects mood more than we admit. Less sunlight means lower serotonin. Less serotonin means lower motivation. So when you tell yourself, "I'm lazy," sometimes it's not laziness. It's chemistry. My English practice slowly disappeared. Not because I didn't care, but because every attempt reminded me of who I wasn't yet. I would open a video titled "Learn English Easily." 5 minutes later, I'd close it. The voices felt too fast. Too confident. Too perfect. Real-life English is messy. People interrupt. They mumble. They change topics mid-sentence. Textbooks don't prepare you for that. And then there was love. Marriage doesn't magically become easier in a new country. It becomes exposed. Every misunderstanding feels bigger when you can't fully explain your feelings. Small arguments grow teeth when vocabulary runs out. Sometimes I wanted to say something deep, emotional, but all that came out was, "I feel not good." And that sentence hurt more than silence. This is where many people quit. Not loudly. Quietly. They stop speaking. They stop practicing. They tell themselves, I'll learn later. But later is a comfortable lie. The brain loves it. Neuroscience shows that motivation doesn't come before action. It comes after. You act first. Your brain rewards you later. At that time, I didn't know this. I just knew I felt small. One evening, after another gray day, I walked without direction. No podcast. No English lesson. Just walking. Rain started falling. Soft, steady, annoying. That's when I saw a sign, animal shelter. I don't know why I went in. Maybe curiosity. Maybe loneliness. Maybe my brain needed something that didn't judge my accent. Inside, it smelled like disinfectant and wet fur. Dogs barking. Some quiet. Some hopeful. Some tired. And then I saw him. A rescued dog. Not excited. Not broken. Just waiting. He didn't ask me anything. Didn't test me. Didn't care how good my English was. And without realizing it, for the first time in weeks, my shoulders relaxed. That moment didn't fix my English. It didn't fix my life. But it cracked the door. And sometimes, that's all your brain needs to begin again. Climate shock, mood shift. Have you noticed how weather can change who you are without asking permission? One cold morning, you wake up in America, and your motivation is still asleep, wrapped in a blanket it refuses to leave. In my home country, climate was predictable. Warm air. Familiar humidity. Seasons that changed politely. In the US, especially where I was living, weather felt like a personality disorder. Sunshine in the morning. Wind that cuts through your jacket by noon. Rain that arrives without warning. Your body notices this before your brain does. Cold tightens muscles. Gray skies lower energy. Shorter days confuse your internal clock. Researchers call this seasonal affective response, and no, you don't have to be depressed for it to affect you. You just feel off. That off feeling quietly kills language learning. Because language requires exposure, repetition, emotional safety. And when your body feels threatened, even mildly, it goes into protection mode. Your brain says, now is not the time to sound stupid. So you stay quiet. I did the same. I stopped greeting neighbors. I avoided small talk. I wore headphones even when nothing was playing. Silence felt safer than mistakes. But here's the uncomfortable truth. English doesn't grow in safety. It grows in low-stakes discomfort. The problem is, climate turned every interaction into high-stakes drama. Cold air made my chest tight. Tight chest made my voice smaller. Smaller voice made people lean in and say, sorry. That one word, sorry, can crush your confidence faster than any grammar test. I remember trying to practice speaking by reading signs out loud. Street names. Store names. My pronunciation sounded foreign even to me. Your brain hates hearing itself fail. Neuroscience shows that when self-audio feedback doesn't match expectation, the brain triggers embarrassment. Not because you're bad, but because your identity feels threatened. This is why many learners avoid speaking alone. Not because they're lazy. Because their brain is protecting their self-image. At home, climate affected marriage too. When it's cold outside, people talk less. We sit closer but communicate worse. Small disagreements stretch longer. Silenciafills ruoms faste. I wanted to explain how lost I felt. But emotional vocabulary is the last thing you learn in a new language. So instead, I said nothing. Then something small changed. I started walking every day, no goal, no English lesson. Just walking. Movement regulates mood. 10 minutes of walking increases blood flow to the brain, improving memory and attention. This isn't motivation talk. It's biology. While walking, I noticed people walking dogs. Slow pace. Repeated routes. Same faces. Same greetings. Good morning. Nice dog. Simple. Predictable. Human. That's when it hit me. Maybe English doesn't need effort. Maybe it needs routine. Climate was still cold. My accent was still thick. But my brain was starting to feel safe again. Language learning isn't about forcing confidence. It's about lowering threat. That night, I looked up the animal shelter again. Not to adopt. Just to visit. Sometimes progress starts when you stop trying to progress. And in that quiet decision, something warm began. Right in the middle of a cold American season. English that wouldn't stick. Have you ever felt like English goes in one ear and quietly escapes out the other, without even saying goodbye? You watch videos. You repeat sentences. You nod along. And the moment you need to speak, nothing. That was my reality. Not because I wasn't trying, but because I was trying the wrong way. Back then, my English practice looked serious.
I hvert sked fastpaced lessons.
Native speakers. Confident smiles. Perfect pronunciation. My brain compared itself constantly, and lost every time. Comparison is toxic for learning. Neuroscience shows that when learners compare themselves to advanced speakers, the brain activates the threat network instead of the learning network. In simple words, fear blocks memory. So every English session felt heavy. I would pause a video and think, why can't I sound like that? That question shuts learning down. It turns curiosity into judgment. Another problem, I practiced English without emotion. Word lists. Sample conversations. Fake situations. My brain didn't care. Memory sticks when emotion is involved. This is called emotional encoding. If your heart isn't present, your brain doesn't bother saving the file. That's why you remember embarrassing moments perfectly, but forget vocabulary from yesterday. I noticed something else. When I tried to speak English, my body reacted first. Tight jaw. Shallow breath. Rigid shoulders. This is not a language problem. It's a nervous system problem. When your nervous system senses risk, social risk, embarrassment, it limits speech. Literally. Muscles involved in speech tighten. Your voice shortens. So telling yourself, just speak more doesn't help. It's like telling someone to relax while yelling at them. I needed a different entry point. One afternoon, I went back to the shelter. Same smell. Same barking. Same quiet corners. A volunteer smiled and asked, "First time here?" Simple question. Slow English. I answered honestly, with broken sentences. Yes. I come sometimes. Just look. She nodded. No correction. No pressure. That moment mattered more than any lesson. I realized something important. Real English is forgiving. People don't care about your grammar as much as you think. They care about connection. While sitting there, I watched volunteers talk to dogs. Good boy. Come here. It's okay. Simple language. Repetition. Emotion. Dogs learn through tone and consistency, not explanations. And suddenly I wondered, why am I learning English like a robot? That day, I didn't study. I listened. Listening without pressure activates passive acquisition. Linguists agree, understanding comes before speaking. Always. At home, instead of lessons, I played slow stories. Real voices. Pauses. Imperfection. I didn't repeat. I didn't take notes. I just let English exist around me. And something strange happened. A sentence appeared in my mind later that night, without effort. Not perfect, but alive. That's when I understood. English wasn't sticking because I was gripping it too tightly. You don't learn a language by chasing it. You let it walk beside you. The next time I went to the shelter, the dog recognized me. He wagged his tail. That reaction felt better than fluency. And it taught me the first real lesson of English in America. Connection comes before correctness. The shelter on a rainy day. Rain has a way of slowing everything down, including your thoughts. On that afternoon, the sky looked like it had given up trying to be blue, and I walked into the shelter without expectations, just to escape the weather, maybe myself. The door closed behind me with a soft click, cutting off the sound of traffic. Inside, the world felt smaller, safer. This is important for learning. Your brain learns best in environments that feel contained. Too much space, too much noise, too many choices, your attention scatters. Psychologists call this contextual safety. The shelter had routines. Same smells. Same floors. Same volunteers. Same questions. Do you want to meet him? 3 seconds. 4 words. Slow. I nodded. They brought out the dog I had seen before. Not excited. Not afraid. Just cautious. He didn't rush me. He watched. That pause mattered. In language learning, pauses are where meaning forms. When speech slows, comprehension deepens. This is why children learn faster than adults. Not because they're smarter, but because adults speak slowly to them. I sat on the floor. No English practice in mind. The volunteer explained his story. He was rescued. Quiet. Needs time. Short sentences. Natural rhythm. My brain didn't struggle. It absorbed. When you're emotionally regulated, your prefrontal cortex, the learning center, works better. Stress shuts it down. Calm opens it. I realized something uncomfortable. I had been trying to learn English in a state of constant tension. Here, tension melted. I said to the dog, quietly, "It's okay." 2 words. Clear. True. My pronunciation didn't matter. My intention did. The dog leaned closer. That reaction lit something up in me. Dopamine. The reward chemical. The same chemical responsible for motivation. Motivation isn't a personality trait. It's a chemical response to positive feedback. That day, English gave me feedback, not from a test but from life. I started coming regularly. Same days. Same time. Routine builds memory. Your brain loves patterns because patterns mean safety. Volunteers began recognizing me. You're back. Simple exchanges. Each interaction was predictable. No surprise questions. No performance. This is how fluency begins. Not with complexity, but with repetition in safe contexts. Outside, rain kept falling. Inside, something dried up. My inner resistance. At home, I noticed I was speaking more. Not better, just more. Less editing. Less apologizing. Marriage felt lighter too. When you feel competent in one area, confidence spills over. Psychologists call this self-efficacy transfer. Language learning doesn't stay in the language box. It changes how you move through the world. That rainy shelter became my classroom. No viteboard. No syllabus. Just presence. And the dog, still quiet, waited every time. Sometimes the best teachers don't speak at all. Rescued dog, silent bond. Have you ever connected with someone without really talking, yet somehow felt understood more deeply than in 1,000 conversations? That's what surprised me most about the rescued dog. He didn't speak, obviously. But the bond we formed was clearer than most dialogues I'd had in English. The shelter workers told me his story again, slowly, as if they knew my brain needed time. He was found on the side of the road. No collar. No chip. He waited. Waiting. That word stayed with me. In English, wait is simple. 1 syllable. But emotionally, it's heavy. Waiting means trusting something you cannot control. That's hard for people. That's even harder for animals. The dog didn't jump when I entered the room. He didn't bark for attention. He watched, measured, and stayed still. In psychology, this behavior is called learned caution. When trust has been broken before, the nervous system slows everything down. Movement, emotion, expectation. That's when it hit me. This dog wasn't slow. He was careful. And suddenly, my English learning made sense. I wasn't bad at English. I was careful. Careful because I didn't want to be judged. Careful because I had failed before. Careful because speaking meant exposure. Just like him. I sat on the floor again, this time closer.
No touching. No forcing.
Just presence. The volunteer smiled and whispered, "He'll come when he's ready." That sentence is perfect English. Simple. Human. Patient. Language acquisition works the same way. Studies show that learners progress faster when they feel autonomy, the sense that they are choosing to engage, not being pushed. Pressure delays learning. Safety accelerates it. The dog inched closer. Not much. Just enough to test the space between us. That space felt familiar. When you learn English, there's always a space. Between what you want to say and what you can say. Between thought and sound. Between identity and expression. Most learners hate that space. They rush to close it. But rushing scares nervous systems, human or animal. So I waited. I talked to him softly. "Hey. It's okay. I'm here." My English was basic. Child level. Honest. Notice something important here. Native speakers use simple language in emotional moments. Not complex grammar. Not fancy words. This is called linguistic regression, and it's natural. When emotion increases, language simplifies. So why do learners feel ashamed speaking simply? That day, simplicity built trust. The dog finally lay down near me. Not touching, but close enough to share warmth. My chest loosened. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, releases during calm connection. It reduces fear and increases openness. This chemical state is ideal for learning. No app can replicate that. From then on, the dog remembered me. He didn't run to me, but he acknowledged me. That consistency mattered. Consistency builds implicit memory, the kind of memory that doesn't feel like studying. It just becomes part of you. At home, I noticed changes. I started narrating my actions out loud. In English. "I'm making coffee. I'm tired today. It's cold outside." No one corrected me. No one graded me. That's how children learn. Language isn't born in classrooms. It's born in safe repetition. Marriage conversations changed too. When I didn't know a word, I paused instead of panicking. I described instead of apologizing. I feel heavy. I need quiet. Not perfect, but true. Communication is not about elegance. It's about accuracy of feeling. The dog taught me that without words. He didn't try to be friendly. He tried to be real. Every visit, our bond deepened slightly.
No dramatic moment.
No sudden trust. Just accumulation. That's how fluency grows too. Not in breakthroughs, but in layers. One day, a new volunteer asked me, "Is he yours?" I laughed and answered, "Not yet." That sentence came out naturally.
No translation.
No fear. That's when I realized something quietly powerful. English had stopped being an enemy. It had become background music to my life. The dog eventually leaned his head against my leg. Full contact. Full trust. It felt earned. Learning English is the same. You don't conquer it. You earn its trust. And once you do, it stays. Learning English through care. Have you ever noticed how responsibility changes the way your brain pays attention? Not the stressful kind, the quiet kind, where something depends on you, and suddenly, you show up without forcing yourself. That's what happened when caring became part of my routine. I didn't officially adopt the dog yet, but in my mind, I already felt responsible. I checked the weather before going out. I remembered visiting hours. I brought small treats after asking permission. These actions weren't dramatic, but they rewired something important. Neuroscientists call this purpose-driven attention. When your actions have meaning, your brain allocates more cognitive resources automatically. You don't try harder. You focus better. And focus is the real fuel of language learning. At the shelter, English stopped being something I studied. It became something I used. Did he eat today? He seems calmer. He likes this. Short sentences. Repeated daily. Repetition with variation is how the brain builds language patterns. This is known as usage-based learning. You don't memorize rules. You absorb structures through meaningful use. That's why children say correct sentences they were never taught. I started noticing how volunteers spoke. They used the same phrases again and again. Not because they lacked vocabulary, but because clarity matters more than creativity in care environments. Caring simplifies language. At home, I mirrored that simplicity. I labeled objects mentally in English. Leash. Bowl. Door. Floor. Not flashcards, context. Cognitive science shows that contextual learning creates stronger neural connections than isolated study. When words live inside actions, they stick. One night, I caught myself speaking English without planning it. I'll be right back. Give me a second. Those phrases came from hearing them repeatedly in real situations. Not lessons. This is how real fluency forms. Your brain predicts language before you consciously think of it. Care also slowed me down. You can't rush a dog. You can't shout clarity into existence. You observe. Adjust. Wait. That patience transferred to my speaking. I stopped rushing sentences. I allowed pauses. Pauses are not failure. They are processing. In conversation analysis, pauses are called turn-holding devices. They signal that you're thinking, not that you're done. Native speakers pause all the time. Learners just feel guilty about it. Caring taught me not to apologize for thinking. Marriage communication changed again. Instead of arguing to win, I explained to be understood. I need time. I don't know how to say this yet. Those sentences saved energy. Emotional and linguistic. Care reduces cognitive load. When you're calm, working memory frees up. You have more space to find words. The shelter became my listening lab. I listened for tone, not vocabulary. Emotion, not perfection. Language is 70% tone and timing. Words are just the surface. I noticed that Americans soften requests. Can you? Would you mind? Politeness patterns appeared naturally because they were tied to care. One volunteer thanked me for being patient with the dog. Most people want quick results, she said. That line hit hard. Quick results kill learning. Language grows in environments where slowness is respected. At home, I applied the same care to myself. I stopped judging my accent. Accents are not errors, they are evidence of experience. Linguists agree, accent reduction does not equal fluency. Intelligibility does. If people understand you, you're succeeding. One morning, while walking, I narrated everything quietly in English. The sky is gray. He's walking slowly. I'm not in a hurry. That sentence felt symbolic. I wasn't in a hurry anymore. The dog didn't need perfection. He needed consistency. English was the same. When care enters learning, fear exits. You stop asking, "Am I good enough?" You start asking, "Am I present?" And presence changes everything. By the end of that week, English felt less like a subject and more like a companion. Still imperfect. Still growing. But alive. Caring didn't make me fluent overnight. It made me steady. And steadiness over time becomes fluency. Love, marriage, small conflicts. Have you ever argued with someone you love and realized the fight wasn't really about the words, but about what couldn't be said? That's what marriage feels like in a second language. Not louder. Just narrower. In America, marriage looks calm from the outside. People smile in public. They say, "We're good." They hold coffee cups like shields. But behind closed doors, language matters more than ever. Small conflicts grow when vocabulary shrinks. Early on, my partner and I argued about tiny things. Dishes. Time. Tone. But the real issue was always the same. I couldn't fully explain myself in English, and frustration leaked out sideways. When you lack language, emotion takes over. Neuroscientists explain this as emotional substitution, when the brain uses feeling to replace missing verbal precision. So instead of saying, "I feel disconnected and overwhelmed," I said, "You never listen." That sentence is easy, but it's explosive. Marriage counselors often say conflict isn't caused by problems, it's caused by misinterpretation. In cross-cultural relationships, that risk doubles. American communication is direct, but emotionally soft. Many cultures are indirect, but emotionally intense. That mismatch creates confusion. I noticed Americans say, "I need space," instead of "leave me alone." They say, "I'm not ready," instead of "no." Those phrases aren't lies. They're cushions. I had to learn not just English words, but English ways. This is called pragmatic competence, knowing how language functions socially, not just grammatically. Textbooks rarely teach this. I learned it through arguments. One night, after a long day, a small disagreement spiraled. Voices rose. Silence followed. That silence felt familiar, the same silence from my early days in America. Then something changed. I paused. Pausing is powerful. In emotional regulation, a pause allows the nervous system to reset. It interrupts automatic reactions. I said slowly, "I don't have the right words yet, but I'm not against you." That sentence wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Honesty builds safety. Safety allows listening. My partner responded differently. Softer. Slower. That moment rewired how I viewed English. English wasn't just for ordering food or surviving work. It was for protecting love. Love gives language urgency. I began collecting phrases, not vocabulary, phrases. I need a minute. I'm trying to explain. This matters to me. Phrases carry emotion better than single words. Linguists call them formulaic language, and they make up a large portion of native speech. When learners use phrases, fluency increases immediately. Not because grammar improves, but because flow improves. At home, we practiced patience. Not as a rule, but as a habit. I stopped correcting myself mid-sentence. Correction kills emotional momentum. Better to finish imperfectly than to stop halfway. My partner learned to wait. Waiting, again. The same lesson the dog taught me. Marriage also exposed cultural expectations. In the US, independence is valued. Personal space is respected. Silence isn't always negative. In my culture, closeness means constant engagement. Understanding this reduced conflict more than any vocabulary list. Language doesn't exist alone. It carries culture inside it. When I accepted that, I stopped blaming my English for every misunderstanding. Sometimes it wasn't my English. It was a difference in defaults. That realization brought relief. I also learned something scientific. Couples who name emotions experience lower conflict intensity. This is called affect labeling. Simply saying, "I feel anxious," reduces amygdala activity, the fear center of the brain. English gave me that tool. Slowly. Clumsily. But effectively. The more emotionally accurate my English became, the less I feared speaking. Because fear isn't about making mistakes. It's about hurting people you care about. Marriage raised the stakes. But it also raised my commitment. English was no longer optional. It was relational. And when language is tied to love, you don't quit. You learn. One careful sentence at a time. Family, children, simple words. Have you ever noticed that children don't speak beautifully, but they speak bravely? They don't wait for perfect grammar. They speak because the world demands response. That realization hit me when family life in America began to expand. Children changed the soundscape of a home. More questions. More repetition. More honesty. And suddenly, English didn't feel like a performance anymore. It felt like a tool. Kids don't care about accents. They care about meaning. They interrupt. They ask why 5 times in a row. They force clarity. In linguistics, this environment is called high input, low judgment, the perfect condition for language growth. I watched how children learned English. They used short sentences. They reused the same structures endlessly. I want this. I don't like that. Can you help me?
Noscham.
No self-correction. Adults lose this freedom. Family life brought English back to its original form, survival through connection. I started using simpler words on purpose. Not because I couldn't use complex ones, but because simplicity worked better. Research shows that simple syntax improves comprehension without reducing intelligence. Complexity is optional. Clarity is not. At the dinner table, conversations slowed. Food, school, weather, feelings. Predictable topics reduce cognitive load. When the brain knows the structure, it focuses on meaning. Children also repeat stories. The same book. The same joke. The same memory. Repetition is not boring to the brain. It's reassuring. This repetition strengthened my listening skills more than any lesson. I noticed my pronunciation improving, not through drilling, but through mimicry. Children mimic naturally. Adults can relearn this by relaxing control. I stopped monitoring every sound. Monitoring creates tension. Tension blocks fluency. Family conversations also taught me emotional precision. Instead of saying, "I'm bad," children say, "I'm sad." Instead of "everything is wrong," they say, "I don't like this." Specific emotion words reduce frustration. Psychologists call this emotional granularity. The more precise your emotion words, the better you regulate feelings. English gave me that precision. Family also taught me timing. You don't interrupt kids mid-sentence. You wait. Waiting creates respect. Respect creates confidence. When someone waits for your words matter more. I began waiting for myself. Silence stopped feeling like failure. In American family culture, silence can mean thinking, not rejection. Understanding this changed everything. I no longer rushed to fill gaps with noise or apologies. I spoke when ready. That confidence transferred to public spaces. Stores. Parks. Conversations with neighbors. The dog was part of the family now. Children spoke to him in English constantly. Sit. Good boy. Come here. Commands are language too. They are direct, clear, functional. I learned from them. English doesn't need decoration to work. It needs intention. One evening, while listening to a child explain something slowly, I realized something profound. This is how English should feel. patient, repetitive, kind, not rushed, not competitive. Family life in America isn't perfect, but it creates a rhythm, and rhythm helps language stick. By living inside simple English every day, I stopped thinking of myself as a learner. I was just a person communicating. And that identity shift is everything. When you stop being someone learning English and start being someone using English, fluency begins quietly. Not with applause, but with ease. American lifestyle, slow living. Have you ever realized that the speed of your life decides the speed of your language? Not your intelligence, not your effort, your pace. That truth revealed itself slowly, the way most important things do in America, between long drives, quiet mornings, and ordinary routines that don't announce their value. At first, American life felt rushed. Schedules, appointments, deadlines. But underneath that surface, there was another rhythm. A slower one. A rhythm you only notice when you stop trying to prove something. In many parts of the US, people respect personal space and personal time. They don't fill silence automatically. They don't rush conversation unless needed. For a language learner, this is a gift, if you know how to accept it. Silence here often means thinking, not judging. Once I understood that, my anxiety dropped. Lower anxiety equals better language processing. This is backed by decades of research under Krashen's effective filter hypothesis. When stress is low, language input flows in. When stress is high, it bounces off. Slow living lowered my filter. Mornings became quieter. Coffee without rushing. Walks without destinations. These moments mattered more than lessons. During walks, I narrated my surroundings in English. Not perfectly. Not loudly. Just enough. Leaves are falling. It smells like rain. It's cold but nice. That kind of narration builds automaticity, the ability to produce language without conscious effort. Automaticity is fluency's real goal. American lifestyle also changed how I viewed productivity. In many cultures, effort must look visible. In America, outcomes matter more than struggle. No one asked how long I studied English. They only noticed whether communication worked. That freed me. I stopped counting hours. I started counting moments. Moments of understanding. Moments of being understood. The dog adjusted to this pace too. Long walks. Short commands. Repeated routes. Routine creates predictability. Predictability reduces mental load. Mental load is the hidden enemy of language learning. When your brain is busy managing life stress, it has less capacity for language. Slow living gave that capacity back. I noticed Americans often say, "Take your time. No rush. It's okay." Those phrases are cultural permission slips. Permission to think. Permission to pause. Permission to be human. Once I accepted that permission, my English softened. My voice lowered. My sentences lengthened naturally. I stopped rushing endings. I let ideas breathe. This aligns with prosodic fluency, the rhythm and melody of speech. Native-like speech isn't about speed, it's about timing. Slow living taught me timing. Marriage benefited too. Arguments became conversations. Silence became space. When you're not rushing to be right, you can afford to be clear. I also noticed something about American conversations. People value stories more than explanations. You don't need to explain why something is hard. You tell a story. That's why storytelling is powerful for language learning. Stories activate multiple brain regions: memory, emotion, imagery. Grammar becomes background noise. My life itself became my textbook. Weather changes. Family moments. Dog routines. Each day provided input. I wasn't practicing English. I was living in it. This lifestyle shift removed the finish line. No more when will I be fluent. Just, how am I communicating today? That mindset reduces burnout. Burnout happens when effort and reward disconnect. Slow living reconnects them. One evening, sitting on the porch, watching the sky change colors, I realized something quietly important. English no longer felt foreign. It felt situational. Like clothing you wear depending on weather. Not identity. Not pressure. Just a tool. American slow living didn't make me less ambitious. It made me more sustainable. And sustainable learning lasts. When you slow your life, your language catches up. Naturally. What my dog taught me. Have you ever learned the most important lesson of your life from someone who never spoke a word? That's what my dog did, without trying, without teaching, without knowing. By the time he officially became part of our family, I had stopped thinking of him as a rescued dog. He wasn't broken. He wasn't incomplete. He was experienced. That distinction matters. In language learning, we label ourselves too quickly. Beginner. Bad at pronunciation. Slow learner. But those labels don't describe ability. They describe history. The dog's history made him cautious, not incapable. My history with English had done the same. Living with him showed me how learning actually happens. He learned routines before commands. Environment before instruction. This aligns with embodied cognition, the idea that learning is grounded in physical experience, not abstract rules. He understood walk long before he understood sit. Why? Because walk came with movement, emotion, and reward. English works the same way. Words tied to action stick. Words tied to tests fade. Every morning followed a pattern. Leash. Door. Steps. Outside. Predictable sequences build neural pathways faster than random practice. That's why consistency beats intensity. I stopped binge learning English. I embedded it. I talked during walks. I listened during meals. I spoke when emotion demanded it. The dog also taught me nonverbal communication. He read tone instantly. Volume mattered more than vocabulary. Studies show that up to 38% of meaning in spoken language comes from tone. Learners focus too much on words and ignore delivery. Lowering my voice made my English clearer. Slowing my pace made me easier to understand. Another lesson: mistakes aren't disasters. When the dog misunderstood a command, nothing bad happened. We adjusted. We repeated.
Noscham.
Language thrives in shame-free environments. Shame activates the amygdala, which blocks the hippocampus, the memory center. This is why embarrassment makes you forget words you know. With the dog, there was no embarrassment. So I recreated that environment for myself. I allowed wrong sentences. I allowed pauses. I allowed accents. Accent, I learned, is simply pronunciation history, not a flaw. The dog never tried to be someone else. He just responded as himself. That authenticity gave him confidence. Confidence is contagious. I noticed strangers responding more patiently to my English when I spoke calmly. Not faster. Not louder. Calm signals competence. The dog also taught me about feedback. Immediate, gentle feedback works best. If he didn't respond, I changed my tone. Not my worth. I applied that to English. If someone didn't understand me, I rephrased. I didn't apologize excessively. Over-apologizing signals insecurity and invites interruption. This small adjustment changed conversations. Living with a dog also creates community. Dog owners talk. Weather. Routines. Names. Low-stakes talk builds fluency. These conversations repeated daily. Repetition with variation again. One neighbor once said, "Your English is getting really natural." I didn't feel proud. I felt calm. That's when I knew something had shifted. Fluency didn't arrive as excitement. It arrived as normalcy. The dog never celebrated progress. He just lived. And living was enough. English had become part of life's background noise. Not something I chased. Something I carried. The biggest lesson he taught me was patience. Not passive waiting, but active presence. You don't rush trust. You don't rush learning. You show up. You repeat. You stay. And eventually, connection happens. Not perfectly, but deeply. That's how my dog taught me English. Without words. From survival to belonging. Have you ever noticed the moment when a place stops feeling temporary and quietly becomes yours? Not with fireworks. Not with announcements. Just one ordinary day when you realize you're no longer counting exits. That's what happened to me in America. At first, everything I did felt like survival. Find the right words. Avoid mistakes. Don't stand out. Survival mode is efficient, but expensive. In neuroscience, survival mode prioritizes threat detection over creativity. You communicate to get through, not to connect. That was my English for a long time. Functional. Flat. But slowly, as routine stabilized, something shifted. Belonging began where survival ended. Belonging isn't about fluency. It's about comfort. I noticed I stopped rehearsing sentences before speaking. I trusted that something would come out, and it usually did. Trust changes cognition. When your brain expects success, it accesses language faster. This is known as expectancy priming. Confidence isn't arrogance. It's prediction. I predicted communication would work. And it mostly did. I also noticed my listening improved dramatically. Not because speakers became clearer, but because I stopped panicking. Anxiety narrows attention. Calm widens it. I could now hear tone, humor, intention. Jokes made sense. Sarcasm landed. Belonging sharpened perception. At home, conversations flowed. Not long. Not perfect. But mutual. Marriage felt like partnership again, not translation work. We argued less about words and more about real things. Which means progress. The dog adjusted too. He moved freely. He slept deeply. Animals sense safety before humans do. If he felt at home, maybe I did too. Community interactions changed. I stopped being the foreigner learning English. I became the guy with the calm dog. Identity shift matters. When people see you as a person, not a learner, they respond differently. Language becomes secondary. I also learned to share my story. Not the dramatic version. The honest one. Storytelling creates belonging because it invites empathy. You don't need perfect grammar to be relatable. You need truth. I spoke about weather. About confusion. About learning slowly. People nodded. They understood. Belonging is mutual recognition. I also accepted that I would never sound like a native speaker. And that was fine. Native-like fluency is a myth. Effective communication is the goal. Letting go of that ideal freed energy. Energy returned to listening. To nuance. To presence. The biggest sign of belonging? I stopped translating jokes in my head. I laughed when others laughed. Timing matched. That's prosody again, rhythm. Belonging lives in rhythm. One afternoon, while walking the dog, a neighbor asked me for directions. That seems small. It's not. They trusted me. Trust equals belonging. I gave directions without thinking. Gestures. Simple words. Clear tone. Communication happened. Afterward, I didn't analyze it. I moved on. That's belonging. When language stops being the event and becomes the medium. America no longer felt like a test. It felt like a setting. A place where life happened, in English. Survival mode taught me structure. Belonging gave me freedom. Both mattered. But only one feels like home. A gentle, happy ending. Have you ever reached the end of a long road and realized the destination wasn't the point? The walking was? That's how this story ends. Quietly. kindly, without a big announcement. 2 weeks in America didn't magically change my English. They changed my relationship with it. By then, the dog no longer felt like a rescue. He felt like family. Family changes how you define success. Success stopped meaning sounding fluent. It started meaning being understood without fear. Mornings became predictable. Coffee, dog walk, short conversations with neighbors. Predictability builds safety. Safety builds language. This is supported by psychology. Secure environments enhance long-term learning retention. When your brain isn't defending itself, it stores information more deeply. English settled into my life the same way the dog did. Not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. At home, family conversations flowed naturally. Not fast, not slow. Human speed. Children spoke without thinking. Adults listened without rushing. Language felt like air. Present. Necessary. Unnoticed. I stopped measuring progress. Measurement creates pressure. Pressure reactivates fear. Instead, I noticed moments. Moments when I responded without translating. Moments when silence didn't scare me. Moments when I joked, imperfectly, and people laughed anyway. Those moments are real fluency. Fluency is not accuracy. It's ease. The dog slept peacefully every night. No more alert posture. No more cautious glances. His nervous system learned safety. So did mine. Learning a language is not about forcing your mouth to move. It's about convincing your nervous system that it's safe to be seen. That's what the dog taught me. Care creates calm. Calm creates connection. Connection creates language. If you're listening to this while feeling tired, discouraged, or close to quitting, I want you to hear this slowly. You don't need more effort. You need more kindness. To yourself. To your pace. To your story. English doesn't require perfection. It responds to presence. Let it walk beside you. Let it sit quietly with you. Let it learn you too. Because sometimes, the best friend who rescues you is the one you thought you were rescuing. Sometimes, the thing that changes your English forever isn't a textbook. It's a moment when you finally feel safe enough to be yourself. If a rescued dog could teach me patience, presence, and real English in just 2 weeks in America, imagine what your own story could teach you if you stopped forcing fluency and started allowing connection. This channel isn't about perfect pronunciation. It's about real English, spoken slowly, gently, and honestly, through life, love, family, culture, and the quiet moments that shape us. If you're tired of fast lessons that make you feel behind. If you want to learn English naturally through stories, not pressure. If you believe language should feel human, not mechanical. Subscribe to this channel now. Every week, you'll get slow, clear English listening practice, emotional real-life stories in American English, gentle speaking confidence training, and motivation for anyone learning English in the US or dreaming of it. Leave a comment and tell me, what did a pet, or a small moment, teach you about life or language? Like this video if it helped you feel calmer about your English. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story, because the next one might sound a lot like your own. English is not something you chase. It's something you grow into. And this channel is where that journey begins.